What if the coldest, loneliest billionaire CEO, hardened by betrayal, loss, and years of shutting the world out, was suddenly stopped in his tracks by the tiny, trembling voice of a little girl clutching a teddy bear at the airport gate, whispering through her tears, "I don't have a papa. Can you be my daddy forever?" Before I dive into this powerful story of love, redemption, shocking secrets, and life-changing twists, make sure to subscribe right now because you won't want to miss the emotional roller coaster ahead. This one will break your heart and heal it at the same time. The story begins in New York, where Alexander Reed, a 42-year-old CEO worth billions, lived in a glass penthouse overlooking the city. He had power, money, and the respect of Wall Street, but his heart was empty, frozen after losing his fiancée 10 years earlier in a tragic accident that he blamed himself for. Everyone knew Alexander as ruthless, a man who fired employees without blinking, who sat in boardrooms with his jaw clenched, never smiling, never softening, and certainly never opening his heart. But fate had other plans. One cold December evening at JFK Airport, he was returning from a brutal negotiation trip, exhausted, when he heard a faint voice. He turned his head, and there she was, a tiny girl no older than 6, with tangled hair, big brown eyes, and shoes 2 sizes too small. She tugged at his sleeve, holding a threadbare teddy bear. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Mister, I don't have a papa. Can you be my daddy forever?" The airport seemed to freeze around him. For the first time in years, Alexander's cold heart cracked. He didn't know it then, but this little girl was about to change everything. He knelt down, asking gently where her mother was, but the child only pointed at a distant corner where a frail young woman sat coughing violently. That woman, Emily Carter, was a single mom barely surviving, working 2 jobs, and secretly battling an illness she couldn't afford to treat. Alexander felt something stir inside him he hadn't felt in years, an urge to protect. He introduced himself awkwardly, unsure why this child had chosen him, but little Lily, the girl, just clung tighter, refusing to let go, repeating her question as if her tiny soul somehow knew he was destined to be more than a stranger passing by. Against his own rules, Alexander drove Emily and Lily home that night in his chauffeured car. He discovered they lived in a rundown apartment building with peeling paint, broken heaters, and neighbors who eyed him suspiciously. The CEO who once walked red carpets and corporate galas now found himself in a cramped kitchen where Emily served him tea in chipped mugs, apologizing for not having sugar. Alexander, for the first time in decades, felt humility. Over the following weeks, he couldn't stop thinking about them. He sent groceries anonymously, arranged for Lily's school fees to be mysteriously covered, and even showed up one evening pretending it was coincidence, only to fix their broken heater himself. Emily, proud and cautious, resisted his kindness, thinking he was just another rich man trying to ease his conscience. But Lily saw through it all. She drew him pictures of their new family, calling him Daddy Alex. One snowy night, Emily collapsed from her untreated illness, and Alexander rushed her to a private hospital, covering the bills without hesitation. That night by Emily's bedside, watching Lily asleep in a chair holding her mother's hand, Alexander realized he wasn't just helping strangers. He was falling for both of them. Yet a shadow loomed, Emily's past. She had secrets, a dangerous ex who once tried to control her, and debts owed to people who would stop at nothing to collect. Alexander's enemies, too, began sniffing around, trying to exploit his weakness. For the first time in his life, Alexander had something priceless to lose, and he was willing to fight for it. Just as Alexander grew closer to Emily and Lily, disaster struck. Emily's ex, a ruthless con man named Victor Hayes, reappeared. He learned that Emily had caught the attention of the billionaire CEO, and he saw nothing but dollar signs. Victor threatened to take Lily away, claiming to be her rightful father, and even manipulated the courts with forged documents. Headlines splashed across newspapers, "Cold CEO entangled in custody scandal." Alexander's board of directors pressured him to step away, fearing the scandal would ruin the company. Emily, terrified of losing her daughter, told Alexander to leave them to protect his empire. But Alexander refused. For the first time, he stood up not just for business but for family. In a heated courtroom scene, Victor smirked confidently as lawyers hurled accusations. Lily, sitting small and frightened, suddenly stood up in front of everyone and cried out, "I don't want him. I already have a daddy. It's Alex." The courtroom froze. Judges, lawyers, journalists, everyone stared. Alexander, normally stoic, felt tears sting his eyes. In that single moment, the ICCO melted completely. Yet Victor wasn't finished. He tried kidnapping Lily one night, and Alexander confronted him in a dark alley. The fight was brutal, but with the police's help, Victor was finally arrested. Still, Alexander's empire hung in the balance. Would investors abandon him? Would Emily trust him fully? Or would this fragile family he had found crumble under pressure? The final chapter brought redemption. Emily, recovering from her illness thanks to Alexander's insistence on the best medical care, realized that Alexander's love was real. He wasn't just rescuing them, he needed them as much as they needed him. At Lily's school play, while she played a tiny angel on stage, she looked out into the crowd and shouted unscripted, "That's my daddy. He promised to stay forever." The audience gasped, cameras flashed, and suddenly the cold CEO was humanized in the eyes of the world. Investors who once doubted him saw a new side, stronger, kinder, and more relatable. Emily finally confessed her deepest fear, that she wasn't worthy of a man like him. Alexander silenced her doubts, kneeling before her and Lily, promising that family wasn't about blood but about love, loyalty, and never letting go. In a private yet emotional proposal, he asked Emily to marry him, not just for himself but for Lily, who needed a father's name to proudly carry. Emily said yes, through tears. The final twist came when Alexander discovered letters Emily had hidden. Letters from his late fiancée, written before her death, urging him not to close his heart forever. It was as if fate had woven Emily and Lily into his life at the perfect time. Years later, the once lonely CEO was seen at parks, holding Lily's hand, cheering at soccer games, and walking Emily down red carpets not as a cold businessman but as a loving husband and father. And every time someone asked Lily who that tall man beside her was, she smiled wide and said proudly, "That's my daddy. He kept his promise."